Non-Americans, what do you think of Bernie Sanders? I don't really follow politics, but the Bernie campaigners on campus the other day seemed nice enough. On my Canadian campus. Is that not weird? I can only imagine that was a waste of time.
As a Canadian, I think he is once again asking for my financial support. Bernie's main focus is on domestic U.S. issues, which are hard to translate to the Australian political landscape because we just don't have any analogues here to a lot of the things that Bernie spends most of his time campaigning on. We have a healthy minimum wage and universal health care here, for instance. That said, his stances on most of these issues would align with a broad political establishment consensus here. So I'd call him a fairly mainstream centrist by Australian standards, leaning centre-left if only for his support of workers at the expense of the owner class. He'd be right at home in our Labour Party. It's completely insane to me that 99.9% of his time and energy is caught up in endlessly fighting for basic stuff that literally the whole rest of the world takes for granted, and in doing so he somehow seems to be regarded in the US as some kind of fringe left socialist radical. Insane.
Russian here. He sounds neat and looks like a kind grandpa.
Germany. Most of his positions would be considered classic social democrat, that is center-left. Here,
I keep somewhat on tabs of US politics. Sanders is an old man that has been beating the same drum for the past 50+ years. Hoping he win the nomination and eventually the general elections. He would be a breath of fresh air for the world. Working to improve the domestic lives seems his top priority. The fact that many if not, most big money corps are not supporting him and even fighting to keep him out, should be a message to the masses that he's probably the best person to have in the White House to improve the lives of the bottom 50%. 75%, 85%, 99% 90% plus, and #X200B. I've had many replies with different percent of people that would benefit if Bernie has his way. Regardless, it's a majority.
Australia here. What I know is that he's been against every war since before it was popular to hate them. Been fighting against income inequality for his entire career. Been calling for the changes in his campaign since the 70s. Protested for civil rights in the marches while Biden was yelling to preserve segregation. Spent his first week as mayor of Burlington, Vermont picking up trash in the parks. And that if he wins healthcare in the US will be better than here in O. Edit, formatting.
I'm Canadian and my general feeling towards him is utter disbelief that the most progressive person in America is somehow a 90-year-old Jewish man from Vermont.
Aussie here. What a bloody legend, mate. I like Sanders quite a lot as someone from the UK. His focus on universal healthcare seems sensible to me as it seems like such an obvious right in this country. I like his focus on wealth inequality. I'm not an eat-the-rich type socialist, but here in the UK wealth inequality has always been a big deal and the idea of sharing that pie around a bit more is a good one, especially as more general automation is fast approaching. I also would prefer Sanders or Warren as the president for purely selfish purposes. The UK needs a US trade agreement after Brexit, and a president who is harsher on corporations will limit U.S. corporate interests' ability to take hold of the UK market unfairly. I doubt Biden would be sympathetic to the need to keep drug exports to the UK low in cost, for example. I also quite like Yang for bringing discussion of UB to a viral stage, and think he's performed remarkably well at shaping discussion as one of those candidates who are always going to lose.
It's like they took a normal center-left politician and dropped him in the clusterfuck of American politics and somehow he is doing well?
From an Australian perspective, Sanders advocates policies that I believe America really needs. Most of them are commonplace here, where even our right-wing, conservative parties defend those policies and institutions.
Irish person here. I'm really into politics, specifically American politics, and from an outsider looking in, all the politicians look and act like a subhuman breed of reptiles with no care of empathy towards the general public. I'm no socialist, but Bernie seems genuine and like an overall nice guy who actually cares about the citizens of the US, who are having quite a hard time from what I can tell. Speaking as a Norwegian with no interest in American politics, the general image I have just from the cultural osmosis of being exposed to the internet is old activist man who wants the US to have what Scandinavian countries already have but who probably won't win. No idea if this is correct or not.
Canadian here, he is an idealist, with practical experience. It seems like a combination that could work. His ideas don't seem so crazy to me, although I don't agree with all of them. I like that he doesn't seem like a threat to world peace, and that he seems like the kind of person who wouldn't act completely out of self-interest. Honestly, I wish that Canada more politicians like him.
I wish he was an Australian. We need to append this bullshit place. Fuck SCOMO. The arrogant imbecile.
I think he is the one who feels passionately about change and helping people. If the change is good or not, but he is the only one I find real.
Leaving politics out of it, he's the only American politician scratch that the only politician anywhere I've ever seen who has these two truths. 1. Video of him physically putting himself in actual, physical harm's way to stand up for the marginalized and defenseless. 1960s civil rights movement. I wish people could appreciate more how much of a statement it was for a white guy to stand shoulder to shoulder with black civilians back then. 2. Can hold up video and transcripts of himself fighting and striving for the exact same thing over decades and decades of time. Honestly, people can quibble over political agendas, sure, but, if, standing up for others, doing the right thing even if it is hard and standing firm with your word, is something people want in a leader, truthfully, I can't think of any politician anywhere that has done that, except for Bernie. Edit, oh yeah, and not buried in corporate money. That's actually amazing.
This was asked 4 years ago and he still looks like the only sane normal politician you have running for office. Edit him Swede, Canadian. I think he's great and would get my vote.
New Zealand here. He seems to be exactly what America needs to step back into the role as leaders of the free world. Strong morals that fight for the little man, not the rich. I mean, what was the point of throwing out British aristocracy, royals, if you just become a country run by an elite upper class? He seems great.
Netherlands, sounds like a guy your country really needs. The ideas he is proposing work over here.
Speaking as a Canadian, he's talking about a lot of stuff that you as a country should either be talking about or should have done years, or decades, ago. Medicare for all, reining in corporations, relieving debt, etc. I like him. I'd rather see him in office than Trump. But I'd rather see a half-boiled potato in office over Trump. I think he is a politician who genuinely intends to help the very people who have been brainwashed to fear him.
You guys fucked up in choosing Clinton over him.
All I know is that he is once again asking for my financial support.
I think his accent is hilarious, not in a bad way, just in a he sounds so stereotypically American in why Jewish it's hilarious kind of way. I guess it's like a those people actually exist outside of TV, movies thing. And that's about all I've got as far as an opinion of him.
It took so long to actually have a politician that is not funded by corporate America. That's what I like about him. He's definitely the best Democratic candidate. And he is the only person out of the Democratic candidates that didn't vote for Trump's proposal for extra military spending. I think the American military is way too big.
Can someone explain to me as an Australian why Biden is leading in the polls? He doesn't seem to have any ideas other than to stay the course.
Australian here. I'm a fan. He's advocating on stuff most first world countries already have. He's not that radical. There's a decent chance he can win the primary, and he'll either lose to Trump in a landslide, or his anti-establishment man of the people vibe, which is what got Trump elected, will get him over line. Canada loves him. We'll trade you a Trudeau and throw in 100 liters of maple syrup for Bernie. As an Australian, I'm sick of seeing American politics on the news every night. As a Venezuelan, a treat for our hemisphere.
Swedish here. He seems like the friendly grandpa that just wants everybody to be happy and healthy.
I'm Canadian and I really like Bernie Sanders' ideas. Although being Canadian, I find his ideas regarding healthcare pretty weak compared to what we have. A lot of people that know American politics like him too.
Seems like an idealist to me. If I were the USA, I'd give him a chance. I don't have much info on him, though, as many others seem to.
I love him. I hope he gets elected. I would vote for him if I could. But I'm no longer American. He is not accepting donations from people or other entities that could buy us what he would do once in office. He wants taxpayer-funded health care. Not only is that a human issue, if you're a person who cares about the well-being of other humans, but it's an economic issue. Americans' health care costs are ridiculous. These two issues alone distinguish him from every other person running for office. And they are important.
Brazilian. He's a pretty decent social democrat with left-wing ideas, as I see it, but us South Americans have a hard time believing that any POTUS would really stop imperialism or cease treating us like their goddamn backyard.
I wish we would have someone like him here in Germany. I would vote for him if I was American.
This wasn't a good question to ask, cause everyone who doesn't like him is just gonna be downvoted to shit.
Australian here. I prefer him than all other American politicians who seem to have all sold out.
Mexican. I'm rooting for him. He seemed way more progressive than any other president, candidate I have ever seen, and in a way what he offers it isn't as far-fetched. It's the same system America already have, just not as vicious toward the low class. He has addressed what the new generations fear regardless economy.
I'm nervous that he comes across as too idealistic, having just seen Jeremy Corbyn's Labour dive bomb in the UK, partially for over-promising.
His fried chicken is great.
He seeks the financial support.
I love him. I'm Dutch and I wish we had a fighter like him over here. He's a true humanitarian, a sincere and empathic person, who obviously wants what's best for his country and his people. He's a realist in wanting to give the American people the benefits they deserve, like the rest of the industrialized world enjoy. I think the rest of the world would also benefit greatly from his anti-war, anti-imperialist foreign policies.
I like his vision, but if he's suggesting he can actually implement any of it as president, then I think he's dreaming. From what I've seen in America, it will end in an even more drastic overcorrection in 4 or 8 years. Indian here. If he's not making fake promises, he sounds like a good person.
Canadian here. Bernie just seems like someone who genuinely wants to help make the world a better place, but is just disregarded because he uses the term socialist. We have a party here called the NDP that stands for about the same things that Bernie does, but they never win to federal elections.
I think you guys are so lucky to have someone who is so passionate about your basic human rights. He truly has the everyday American's best interest at heart.
He is pretty much the only political candidate from America that I would not mind giving my vote.
Australian. I sincerely hope Bernie gets past Biden somehow and beats Trump in the general election. I am concerned that if the Democrats select Biden, that Trump would be re-elected. I see Sanders as a man of principle and character who would, if given the chance, correct some of the inequality that really puts the United States behind other wealthy Western nations. I think he would hopefully restore some of the prestige of the office that has been tarnished. As a politically aware British teenager, I'm a big fan of Bernie, and I feel, if he were British, he could have had a very successful career in the Labour Party. A big fan of his policies, especially Medicare, as healthcare is a human right as everyone in the UK accepts.
I immediately think of him in the White House, looking at tourists on the grass, going onto the balcony and yelling, "Get off my lawn."
He seems genuine and passionate, and most of his ideas aren't that bad.
I think even the non-Americans are sick of the Bernie Bros advertising in every sub. I had a friend who goes to college in Canada right now, probably trying to reach people like her. Kinda bizarre though.
Shit ton of Americans in Vancouver and Toronto, especially students, maybe to campaign for expats' votes or people who drive there for college.
Americans are not known for being good at geography.
As a Brit, I think that he thinks cats should be able to have a little salami, as a treat.
Those Reddit tabs are something else.
I don't always like memes. But when I do, they're Bernie memes.
I'd love to throw a hundo at the Sanders campaign. But, As your fellow Canadian, I'm a foreigner, and therefore barred from contributing to American political campaigns. Which is hilarious.
I just exhaled so much CO2 I almost died of carbon dioxide poisoning.
Although his seriousness about tackling climate change is not comparable to any other mainstream politicians now in the Western world. Sure, there are fringe green parties that have it even higher on the agenda, but as far as I know none of those have significant power.
As an American, it is insane. I love your perspective.
He also seems like the kind of grandpa to play Just Dance with his grandchildren.
Tomorrow's headline on Fox News: Internet reveals Bernie Sanders has Russian backing, or is Bernie a Russian agent? Anyone not aware, Fox is a conservative entertainment company that has shows about the news. They love the current president.
This made me laugh for like 20 reasons. Indeed, another Russian. I'm rooting for him since 2016 and I would have donated if I could. I'm that impressed by his devotion to what he has stood for his whole life. Basically he seems like the only person not carved to be a professional politician who's close to being power.
I met him in an elevator in the Senate office building last week. Can confirm.
Damn it. Now Trump is going to be tweeting Russians love Bernie like a grandpa.
Most of his positions are canon for all parties in Germany. No major party in Germany is arguing against having mandatory healthcare, virtually free higher education, virtually free childcare. The only party that may counter these points is the FDP, and they wouldn't dare subvert it openly. Edit. For those saying we pay more in taxes, look at this graph please. https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/list_of_countries/care/cost/rise.svg. We pay 12% of GDP instead of 17 to 18% of GDP in the US for much better results. Managed healthcare is cheaper than free market healthcare. Period. As for child care and higher education, those are basic services that everyone needs when they are younger in order to be successful in the future.
Another German here, and yeah, I agree. He is left 101, nothing too outrageous.
That's because left in America means moderate conservative and right means a Captain Planet levels of cartoonish disregard for general decency. Everything is skewed to the right here.
What would some typical far-left policies in Germany be? Just an expansion of healthcare and education to more people? More social programs in general?
I hope he wins, purely on the basis of saving the environment, ending the drug war, reforming our education and healthcare systems, and racial equality.
Greater than Sanders is an old man that has been beating the same drum for the past 50+ years. To be clear, you obviously already know this, but for those who don't, Bernie hasn't been beating the same drum for the past 50+ years because he's stuck in his ways. He's been beating that drum because he was right then, and he's still right today. He marched with Dr. King in Washington. He put up flyers about police brutality, and protested the Vietnam War. In just about every way, this man has always been on the right side of history. I agree with a lot of this actually. He seems like a good-hearted person who just wants the best for people. And by wanting the best for people he wants to improve their lives with money and education. This is a good thing. Sanders wants to take money from big companies to do this though. I disagree with this. Those big companies earn that money and most pay their taxes. There should be a penalty for not paying taxes or something like that. So where could we get the money? The military budget. Jesus Christ, we spend far too much money on it. I understand security is important, but damn, it's way too much money we spend on it. decrease our amount of soldiers and military equipment, and we could use the money we saved for the people. Also I'm an American, right? As for distributing the money, I doubt that's gonna work, maybe something to do with the federal minimum wage or something. Anyway, yes, Sanders would be a relief for everyone. I just think there's other ways he could make it happen.
This is the main thing for me. His actual ideals and policies aside, the dude legit believes in the stuff he's saying, and his history and actions bear that out. He's a real one, and I've got a lot of respect for that.
Coming from an American with a daughter with congenital heart defects, one can only fucking hope.
This is the best.
He's actually from Flatbush, Brooklyn. But his political career is VT.
Him being from New England is probably what shielded him and many other politicians in the region from the political changes that happened in the 80s and 90s. Plus it helps that Vermont is somewhat close to DC, and if he goes home he is easily accessible to most people in the state. Edit, I meant relative to other states in the US, Vermont is closer.
Trust me, man. It's been befuddling a lot of us as well.
New England is overall a pretty liberal place, especially Massachusetts.
Jewish people are pretty progressive in politics in the US. Most of the time they are very liberal.
Surprise, surprise, I live in Canada too, but I adore Andrew Yang. He is a 45 years old Asian man who's even more progressive than Bernie. He wants to start a universal basic income of $1,000/month for all American age 18 to the day you expire. He also wants to abolish GDP as a measurement of how well a country is doing, and replace it with a more comprehensive score system that measures mental health, drug overdose, suicide rate, education, environmental quality, clean air and water. Google Andrew Yang and you'll be as surprised as I am. His campaign is doing really well too.
Vermont is very hippie place, so that part is not very surprising.
This should be his campaign slogan.
Yeah, except true Australians don't really care. Fuck, we vote for a prime minister and 6 months later the party decides to kick him out anyway.
This is the quintessential Australian reply.
Yeah, seems like a top bloke. What politicians should be. Dunno if he's got snowballs of winning though.
Another Aussie here, and I reckon he's a good cunt.
I love how he is center-left in Europa, but far-left in America.
People are tired of the clusterfuck of American politics. There are plenty of sane Americans who want this corrupt disaster of a government over with.
This is it. I am European who is center, right-oriented, but it is because even right-wingers here wouldn't dream of making health system or educational system a clusterfuck similar to the US.
American living in Australia here. The conservatives in the States call Bernie drastically far left. But here in Australia he would be a centre-moderate really. I think it's that America has drifted drastically far to the right, in the last 25 years.
I mean, the conservatives would gut those institutions the second they were given the chance and the right political environment. The party's think tank, the IPE, has been calling for it for decades.
Thank you for watching. We publish amazing Reddit stories every day. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe to keep the dog smiling.